Imagine you're driving in your car and you know where you want to go, but you're driving in your car with unconsciously, you have one foot on the brake and one on the gas, right? So imagine you're driving down the road, you know where your goal is, you know your destination, but you're driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas. Well, how long is it going to take you to reach your goals?
Like most of us, today's Ask an Expert had an epiphany while in the shower. Unlike most of us, his epiphany not only went on to change his life, it went on to change the lives of thousands of others. Hi, I'm Joshua Carlson, co-founder of Propelo Media, and today I sit down with Noah St. John. He is known as the Power Habit Mentor. He's an author and a business coach that has helped businesses achieve an additional $2.7 billion in revenue. Today, we're going to talk about one of the biggest challenges we all face, which is called head trash. He's going to talk about how to identify it and how to eliminate it. And then we're going to talk about the differences between personal and organizational habits. And finally, we talk about how you can mentally mitigate the impacts that are facing each and every one of us through these challenging times. Now let's hear what Noah has to say. Noah, thank you so much for joining our Ask an Expert series.
Oh, it's great to be here with you today, Joshua.
Okay, so I like origin stories, and I think that yours is pretty interesting. So you grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. Yes. You can see money, you just can't really touch it. You had a couple of epiphanies in your life, which we're going to get to. I'd like to dig into those. But first, you literally had, I think, almost a third epiphany or something where Stephen Covey's 7 Habits literally fell at your feet. Why don't you share that story?
That's right. Well, I was on a mission really to improve my life, as you mentioned, growing up poor in a rich neighborhood. And it was like, how come those people down the street have so much stuff and we have nothing? And it was just really aggravating, frankly. You hear speakers all the time, they get on stage and say, well, we were poor, but we were happy. We didn't know we were poor. Well, in my family, we freaking knew we were poor because my mother reminded us every day that we were poor and miserable. So no, it wasn't happy, it sucked. Yep. And so, I was always on this journey to improve myself, to say, hey, I want a better life. How do you do that? So, many, many years later, I was at my church bookstore after I'd gone through, a heck of a lot of stuff. And I was just, scanning the books, because I love reading. I'm a nerd and I just love books, love reading. Yep. And so I was scanning the books and all of a sudden something fell at my feet. And I look around, I'm like, what the heck was that? There was no wind, there was no person around. And I'm like, that was weird. So anyway, I bent down, picked it up, and it said the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yeah. I said, wow, that sounds interesting. I'd like to know the 7. I never heard of Stephen Covey, never heard of the book or anything. And to let you know how long ago this was audio tapes. I mean, those little things that go around in a circle.
Yeah, right.
Who are too young to remember that. But anyway, so I'm like, oh, that sounds, anyway, so I put it in my car, my tape recorder in the car. And I tell you, I listened to it over and over and over again. And I mean, tears were just pouring down my face as I was listening to Dr. Covey when he was talking about this, because I realized as he was describing these, I've been living the 7 habits of highly ineffective people my whole life. Right. So I was doing like everything backwards. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this explains why I'm not getting the results that I want. And what a brilliant guy. So fast forward another couple of years after that, I actually had the opportunity to interview Dr. Covey. I called his office and I, wasn't expecting anything. I just said, I said to his assistant, I got his assistant on the phone, and I said, Dr. Covey's been a big influence on me, and I'd, just love to interview him sometime or talk to him. And I'm figuring, like a year down the road, right, 2 years, because he's so busy. And she puts me on hold, gets back, and she says, how's next Thursday? And I went, what? So I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Covey I had 20 uninterrupted minutes on the phone with Dr. Stephen Covey. And what a hero of mine he was. What a great example. And he said something I never forgot, that I do what I love to share with my audiences when I have the opportunity to do so. And I asked him a question. I said, how do you handle it when people just, worship you and they say you're the greatest thing in the world? And how do you handle that, Because this was before I'd written any of my 15 books, or before I was even in this industry. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be an author and a speaker, but I, didn't have anything to talk about at that time, or didn't know what I was going to talk about. And he said something I never forgot. He said, Noah, I want people to leave my seminars more impressed with themselves than with me. Yeah. And what a beautiful thing to say. That was him. He was so humble and so real. And I've tried in my, little way to exemplify that and live that as best as I could. Of course, not as well as Dr. Covey did, but that really had a big influence on me.
No, I think that's the right approach. And that's where I think you can have the most meaningful impact. But speaking of impact, you have these epiphanies. Let's talk about the first one, which is on the whiteboard behind you. Why don't you share that? Yeah. Well positioned.
Yeah, well, thank you, thank you. You know, it's product placement, right?
Exactly, exactly.
So yeah, that was my first epiphany in the shower. As I mentioned, I'm a nerd. You know, I've been reading self-help books since I was a little kid, and they all say the same thing, right? They'll say, "Well, use affirmations, right? A statement is something you want to be true." So, like right now, today, when I do speaking, I'm doing keynote speeches, whether virtual trainings or if they're live events, or even with my coaching clients. What I often say to people is, let's play a fun exercise, and we'll do an affirmation like they teach you, like they
Okay.
teach us, right? Like they've been teaching
Yeah.
for decades, which, a classic affirmation is I am rich. And I have everybody stand up and say, I am rich. Everybody goes, I am rich. And then they, know what happens next? Everybody starts laughing. And I
Yeah.
go, what are you laughing at? They go, well, I'm not rich. And I said, but you just said you were. And they go, yeah, but I don't believe it. And see, that's the problem, isn't it? With the
Yeah.
traditional statement method, right? We say
Yep.
these statements, I'm happy, I'm rich, I'm successful. And for most of us, we just don't believe it, right? Now that they
Right.
said, well, just repeat it 1,000 million billion cajillion times, and then eventually someday you'll believe it. Now, for some people that worked just fine, but for millions of us, people like me, it didn't work at all. Because I've been saying these statements, I had them, all over my wall and post-it notes, everything. I'm happy, I'm rich, I'm successful. No, I'm not. I'm broke, unhappy, and miserable, right? So I'm like, it
Right.
didn't work at all.
Yeah.
And so one morning in April 1997, I was a broke college student, and I had all these affirmations all over the place. And I was just so frustrated because I've been doing what they taught me for so many years, not getting any results. So
Yeah.
I said, what aren't they telling us? What's missing? There's got to be something here that they're not telling us. So I was in the shower, in
Yep.
my books and in my programs, I call it the shower that changed everything, right? Because we all have those aha moments in
Oh
the
yeah.
shower.
Yeah.
Right? And so I said, so what are we talking about? We're talking about beliefs, but what's a belief? A belief is a thought. But what is thought? And I realized that human thought is the process of asking and searching for answers to questions,
Mm.
not statements, but questions. For example, I can prove this to you. For everyone watching, I can prove this to you right now. If I ask you the question, why is the sky blue? Why is the sky blue? Now, do you know what just happened in your brain? Your brain started to search for the answer,
Right.
right? Even if you don't know the answer, it's like doing a computer search, right? Or a Google
Yeah.
search, right? Your brain's like a computer, right? And it's searching its files. The sky's blue because, I don't know, but it's looking, right?
Yep.
And I said, now, wait a minute. If the human mind is automatically searching for answers to questions, why are we going around making statements we don't believe? Why don't we just cut out the middleman?
Okay.
And I said, I don't know, what would that look like? Well, let's see, you got the statement or affirmation, I am rich, to which your brain replies, yeah, right. Right. In my
Yep.
books and my programs, I call it the yeah, right response, because literally your brain goes, yeah, right.
Sure.
Right. So I said, if that's the statement, then what would the question be? And then I said, why am I so rich? Why am I so rich? Now, when you ask that question, what immediately starts to happen in your brain? You start to search for the answer, right?
Right.
So I said, we're talking about the law of sowing and reaping. As you sow, so shall you reap. This is an ancient law. It's been taught for centuries. Yet, what are most people doing? Sowing lousy thought seeds.
Right.
Why am I so dumb? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose weight? Why isn't my business growing? Why can't I get more clients? Why is there more month left at the end of the money? Right?
Yeah.
You ask lousy questions, what do you get?
Yeah.
Lousy answers, right?
Yeah.
And so that creates a lousy life. So I said, what if we just flip the whole thing on its head, start asking empowering questions that lead to phenomenal answers, and create a wonderful life? And as I was standing there in the shower, April 1997, I said, holy cow, I think I just invented something. And so I had to give it a name. The name I gave it was Afformations, with an O, Afformations. And yes, you can go to afformations.com and learn more about it. And I said, holy cow, this could really help a lot of people. This is amazing. I can't believe no one's ever thought of this before. So I jumped out of the shower, I wrote it down on my computer, and then I said, wow, I got to teach people about this. But remember, this was 1997, over 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
There was no Facebook, no YouTube, no social media. Blogs was not even a thing back then. I mean, there was no way to do it. So long story short, I self-published a book and, talked about it. And then I happened to meet a fellow named Jack Canfield, who we all know, of course, now from The Secret and Chicken Soup for the Soul. Well, he loved my book, and it was called Permission to Succeed. This is my very first book, and it was published by the Chicken Soup people. So, and
Wow.
Jack Canfield's right there on the cover. So, I mean, really, that's how it started. Very humble beginnings, but now over 1 million people have joined what we call the Afformations revolution, and it's really been incredibly powerful.
So let's talk about this a little bit further. Is there a process that you think is best suited? Because I think, to say I want to be rich, right? It's very nebulous, and obviously asking like, how can I become? But do you take it further to say, what quality of life do I want first, and then work backwards to structure the appropriate questions that
Yes,
you can then
absolutely. So,
okay.
this is something that I talk about, as I mentioned, I've written 15 books, but my point is, like in my book of Afformations, which is published by Hay House, there is a process. It's a 4-step process that I teach you about how to actually change your brain, change your habits, and change your life using my Afformations method. And so the point is that, first of all, you want to understand what it is that you want. It's like driving a car, right? So you need to understand where you're going. You don't just get in your car, drive around in circles and come home. That would be dumb, right?
Right.
But yet millions of people are doing that in their lives or in their businesses without even realizing it.
Yes.
Right? They're doing it unconsciously, unwittingly, of course. Nobody does this on purpose. But so they don't have that really clear goal. So you do have to understand what it is that you want. Then you want to afform, right? You use my Afformations method, which is a specific formulation of a question. Like, for example, I just gave you an example of that. Why am I so rich? And so you're asking that question. And then the third step is you give yourself to the question, right? Like I teach you in the books and in the programs, how to meditate, how to journal, all these different ways that you actually communicate with yourself as well as with the outside world. And then the fourth step, which is the most important, which most people don't do, but it's the step you must do if you want to get results, which is you have to take action, right? There's a lot of teachers out there, a lot of so-called gurus, and they say, well, just think about money and money pours in from the sky. Well, I'm not sure what planet that works on, but it's not the planet Earth.
Yeah.
Because I would move to that planet where you don't have to do anything, right? That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. See, that's what people want to hear. They're selling what people want to hear, right? Which is, hey, don't work and get everything you want. It's kind of like saying, hey, take a pill and all of a sudden you get 6-pack abs. Wouldn't that be great?
Be fantastic.
Sorry, guys, it doesn't work that way. Gosh darn it. But lots of people believe that, unfortunately. But of course, it's a lie. It doesn't work that way. So yes, we've got to take action.
Perfect.
But what I teach people, and this is so important, just going back to the car analogy. Imagine you're driving in your car and you know where you want to go, but you're driving in your car with unconsciously you have one foot on the brake and one on the gas, right? So imagine you're driving down the road, you know where your goal is, you know your destination, but you're driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas. Well, how long is it going to take you to reach your goals? A long time, right? And the point is, somebody comes along and they say, well, you know what you need? You need to put different type of gas in your car. The gas, that's the problem. And you put in a more expensive gas, but you're still doing the same habits, you get the same result. Somebody says, well, you need new tires. You get new tires, you spend a lot of money, you're still doing the same habits, same result. Somebody says, you know what, just get a new car. You need a new car. Your car isn't good enough. You spend a lot of money, but you're still doing the same habits. So what I do is I come in and I say, by the way, did you know you have your foot on the brake? And you're like, no. And I say, well, do you know if you get your foot off the brake, you can actually get where you want to go faster, easier, and a lot less effort? You're like, really? And I go, yeah, just take your foot off the brake, and then you can actually get there much faster. That's why we have our clients collectively have added over $2.7 billion in sales, meaning we've helped people just like your audience to add 6 figures, multiple 6, 7, and yes, even 8 figures. And a big, big reason for that is just getting your foot off the brake. It's so simple, but so many people just overlook it because they're, distracted by a lot of shiny objects.
Sure. So what are examples of this break, right? Because I think that I fully, before you said it, I was teeing up, this thought process, which is, hey, this all sounds good, but I feel like a lot of people hear it, but then they don't go anywhere. So what are these break examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So to really dig into this is something we work on in great depth, with my coaching clients, whether, I'm doing training events or private workshops or one-on-one clients, is in any human endeavor, there are always two forces at work. What we call the driving force and the restraining force. Okay. So again, it is just like driving a car. So in your car, you have the driving force of the gas, right? That propels you forward, right, towards your goal. But you also have the restraining force of the brake, all right, which of course slows you down or stops you. So the point is, one of the things that you can do, and everybody can do this right now, is understand where your driving forces are. Why do you want that, right? I call that your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Right. So I want to make $1 million. I want to write a book. I want to have my online courses. I want to go on a vacation, to the Grand Cayman, whatever it is, right? Whatever your goals are. And by the way, it's not just in business, but also in your life, in your health, in your relationships, and what have you, right? Because one of the things that I always say to my clients is, where don't your beliefs affect you? Right? What's one area of your life where your beliefs don't affect you? And of course, the answer is, well, there's no place your beliefs don't affect you, right? They affect your health, your wealth, your finances, your business, your relationships, everything, right? So, and also, by the way, notice to take that point, you can be doing really well in one area of your life and maybe stuck or struggling in another. For example, maybe your business is going really well, but maybe your relationships are suffering, or maybe, your relationships are great, but maybe your health is suffering, or whatever. You see what I mean? So it's not cookie cutter, one size fits all. Everything is very customized with the work that we do with our clients. But so when you go back to the foot on the gas, what is it that you want and why do you want it? And then you look at the restraining forces. Okay. What are the forces that are holding you back? A lot of times there's, for example, bottlenecks in the business, right? Bottlenecks mean exactly what it sounds like, right? Just like a traffic jam, right? Yeah. You got all this inputs coming in, but nothing's going through, or not enough is going through to help you to reach your goal. So that's one of the things that we look at, is we look at the driving forces, but then we look at the restraining forces. Now just think about this logically, everyone listening, is if you keep working on stepping on the gas harder without looking at the brake, are you going to reach your goals faster? The answer is not really, no. I mean, maybe a little bit, but isn't it much smarter and easier to just get your foot off the brake? I'll give you a quick example. We had one woman who came to me, and she was $60,000 in credit card debt because she had spent all her money on all those gurus out there. Yeah. All those guys basically saying, get new tires, get a new car, get new gas. And she'd spent all this money, and she was about to go bankrupt. She was about to declare bankruptcy. She was about to lose her home. She was about to lose her husband, because her husband said, you're buying all this self-help stuff. We're supposed to be getting better. We're getting worse, right? So this is not, so he was fed up. He couldn't take anymore. So she hired me basically as like a last resort, pretty much. Yeah. And I said to her exactly what I'm saying to all of you, which is, let's look at the driving restraining forces. Long story short, she realized that she'd been having what I call a lot of head trash, right? Head trash meaning another way to say your foot on the brake, why you're holding yourself back unconsciously. Again, nobody does this on purpose, but it doesn't matter. Your foot's still on the brake, even if you don't know it is. And so the point is, we showed her how to do that. We took her through the process. And long story short, she went from $60,000 in credit card debt to a six-figure income in less than a year. She, saved her marriage, saved her home, didn't declare bankruptcy. Yeah. And now she's actually a published author, and she asked me to write the foreword for her first book because of how she said, I changed her life. So literally from $60,000 in debt to a six-figure income in less than a year, a big, big reason for that was getting her foot off the brake.
So I love that term, head trash. I think that's a very, it's just instantly resonates like, oh yeah, I do have garbage up there. Yeah, no, that's perfect. What were examples of her head trash? I mean, what were the things that were causing her to just not get past it?
Well, these are very, very common, right? So, by the way, everybody watching this can get this book for free, by the way, at sendmeabooknoah.com, and we can give that link, but it's very easy to remember. Sendmeabooknoah.com. The book is free. Just cover the shipping. But anyway, so these are very, very common themes, right? What I call your head trash. So your head trash basically is that voice in your head that says, I can't do it because. Yeah. Right. And then ... So you just fill in the blank, right? Well, Noah, I want to double my income, like your clients do. I want to write a book. I want to, start my online business, grow my online business, whatever it might be, like your clients do. But I can't do it because. Right. And then see, whatever happens after the word because is what you believe and what you will defend to the death. Because what's so ironic about us humans is that we would rather be right than be happy. a lot of times, right? We'd rather be right than successful. Meaning if you say to yourself, well, Noah, that sounds great, but I can't do it because I don't have the time. I can't do it because I don't have the money. I can't do it because I wasn't born in the right family. I can't do it because I didn't go to the right college, because I'm married, because I'm divorced, because I have kids, because I don't have kids, because I'm a Martian. I mean, whatever. We'll come up with a million excuses, won't we? Right. But here's the thing, friends, for everybody watching, you always make yourself right. See, so Will Rogers had a great quote that I love to share with my clients, whether I'm speaking virtually or in training programs or workshops, is it ain't what a man don't know that gets him in trouble. It's what he knows that ain't so. Right. And so think about that, right? How all the things that well, Noah, you don't understand. I've had blah, 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 blah. You're right. I've only heard it a million times. I don't understand. Right. But see, isn't it funny? We'll defend that to the death, what the thing that's holding us back. Isn't that unbelievable? But it makes sense if you've ever met human beings.
Yes, this is very true. You had a second epiphany. What was the second epiphany?
So the second epiphany I had was about why so many smart, creative, talented people hold themselves back from the level of success they're perfectly capable of. Okay. So when I discovered Afformations in the shower that changed everything in April 1997, it was actually October 1997. So 1997 was my year for epiphanies. I realized that there are so many smart, creative, talented, hardworking people who are unknowingly, unconsciously, unwittingly driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake. as I described a moment
Yeah.
ago.
Okay.
And so what I realized is that we don't need any more how-tos of success. What we actually need is to give ourselves, as I mentioned, permission to succeed. So that was my very first book. So what that became, what now was my this new work called Power Habits, which is the power habits of unconsciously successful people. So what I did as the nerdiest nerd in the industry, that's me, what I did was I studied all these highly successful people and I said, okay, now what are they doing that they don't even realize they're doing? In other words, they're unconsciously competent at allowing themselves to succeed. See, so going back to, for example, Napoleon Hill, right? All of us, I'm sure everybody watching is familiar with Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. In Think and Grow Rich, he interviewed all these successful people and he said, well, what do you do? How'd you become so successful? Well, you do this, 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 and this. Okay. So he said, well, I do this, 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 and this. So how come millions of people have read that book and they're still not successful? Yeah. The answer is because highly successful people are doing things they're not even consciously aware they're doing. Okay. And so what I did was I created a system, which I call the Power Habits System, which is right here on page 100 in the Power Habits book. And as you can see here, I know it's kind of hard to see, but Afformations is actually the first power habit. There's 11 total power habits. Afformations is the first one, meaning they are highly successful people, what I call the naturals of success, are automatically and unconsciously thinking in these positive ways. Right. So when you say an affirmation, the old way, the statement, I am happy, I am rich, what you're doing is you're bashing up against your own brain, which says, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, no, I'm not. Right. Right. So using my Afformations method, we do an end run around that head trash. That's the first power habit, but then there's 10 more. There's 11 total power habits, as I mentioned. So the point is, highly successful people, what I realized, my epiphany was, they can't actually tell us how to be successful. They can tell us the how-tos. But think about this. This is a very important point. If how-tos were enough, we'd all be rich, happy, and thin. Right? Because everybody knows how to succeed. There's a billion blogs out there that all talk about how to succeed, how to lose weight, how to this, how to that. Okay, so how could there be an obesity problem? How could there be an addiction problem? How could there be a success problem? The answer is because it's not the how-tos. Yes, do you need how-tos? Of course you do. Yeah. But that's not the real reason that these people became successful. It's what they can't tell you that actually is the most important point. So for those people like Susan, my client, who I mentioned a moment ago, from 60,000 six-figure, that was her problem. And that's what, the issue is. And that's the reason we've helped our clients make over $2.7 billion, is because it's not about the how-tos anymore. It's about what the why-tos. And I'll give you another quick example. I was speaking at a conference in Los Angeles for about 1,000 business owners. I was walking off the stage. A man came up to me out of the audience. He said, Noah, I want to hire you as my personal coach right now. Now, I didn't know this man from Adam. Ironically, his name was Adam. And so I said, okay, what's going on? He said, Noah, I'm totally stuck. I'm only making $4 million a year. Now, of course, I had to laugh, right? I mean, a lot of people like to be stuck, with air quotes, right, at $4 million a year, right? That doesn't sound like a problem. He said, no, I own a company, and we got to $4 million in revenues really fast, but we've been stuck, plateaued at $4 million for the last 4 years. 4 years, and we haven't had no growth. And he said, I spent all this money on all these marketing guys, all these gurus. He named every big, all the big names. He said, we're still stuck. He said, as soon as I heard you speak about head trash and foot on the brake and affirmations and power habits, everything you just said, he said, I knew that you were the coach for me. So he literally hired me on the spot. Long story short, I worked with him for about a year and a half. In that time period, his company went from being stuck at 4 million for the previous 4 years to over 20 million in sales, over a 6 times growth. How did I do that? By doing exactly what I'm sharing with you in this program, which is looking at the driving forces and restraining forces, and then helping him to install the power habits of unconsciously successful people. He was unknowingly, after he had hit that plateau, he was unknowingly stopping himself. Again, nobody does this on purpose, but bringing it to the surface, then we were able to make those changes, and the results were pretty amazing.
Is there a tipping point that you see? Because I feel like a lot of people will start doing the right thing, and maybe they're taking the foot off the grass. But, and we'll use diet as a very easy one to do because it takes a long period of time. So I do it for 2 days, and I'm like, well, gosh, I don't see the 6-pack abs. So this clearly isn't working. So where do you see that tipping point happening for people?
The tipping point of stopping, or the tipping point of where
the tipping point where it's almost like they see the light bulb, like, okay, I am actually making progress. This is actually happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the point is that as I said a moment ago, as I said earlier, you know, it's not cookie cutter, one size fits all. So some people are doing really well in their business and their health is suffering, or maybe their relationships are good, but their business isn't where they want to be, and so forth. So we really have to look at each area. As I mentioned earlier, you know, there's no place your beliefs don't affect you. So maybe you have like really healthy beliefs about your relationships, but maybe you reach a certain level in your business and then you just stop, or you sabotage, right? Or you're stuck, like Adam, as an example.
Sure.
And so the point is, for every person, it's really different. That's why we have, you know, a lot of questionnaires, and we really talk to our clients to understand for them what is the stuck point, what is, as I said, you know, the foot on the brake, as I call it, because it is really, really accurate. That's a really accurate analogy, because it's kind of like setting, you know, the temperature gauge in your thermometer in your house. You know, like if you have the heat or the air conditioning and you set it at a point, and then the heat goes up, and then the air conditioning kicks in. Well, that's exactly what happened. I call that the income ceiling law. All of us have an income ceiling in our heads. Well, I can only make X amount, and after that, I get really scared, right? And that will just happen in your body. Why does that happen? Who knows? I mean, there could be a dozen different reasons. It doesn't really matter. What we do is we look at it and we go, aha, now let's apply the power and habit system, you know, again, because frankly, some people don't need all 11, or they're already doing some of them. Like Adam was doing actually quite well in several of these areas, but there were ones that he said, oh my gosh, I never even knew that. That's amazing. And boom, look what happened as a result.
Okay, so let's talk about the difference between personal habits and organizational habits. How do we apply these personal things internally, which can have a tremendous impact on me? How do we apply those organizationally?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at my power habit system, you know, that I showed you here, you know, I call, if you notice, this looks kind of like Da Vinci's Man, if you remember that,
yes, it does,
drawing, that famous drawing. So, you know, this applies to personal as well as organizational. So one of the things, for example, that is very, very crucial in organizational habits is this whole concept of alignment, right? So, of course, every individual comes in with their own needs, desires, wants, and let's face it, head trash. Right. I mean, so meaning the reasons why they think they can't do something. Right. And so what I teach when we work with organizations and work with organizational clients, one of the things we do is we have those type of intake forms where we get everybody's beliefs on the table, you know, in a very, you know, structured anonymous way, of course. And so the point is we're looking at where the head trash is for, let's say, that department, or maybe, you know, the C-suite, or, you know, the executives, or whatever it might be, right? So whoever is making those types of decisions, and then we're saying, okay, so here's the head trash here. Here's where your foot is on the brake, and here's why you're saying you have these goals, but here's why you're saying you probably aren't going to reach them. And a lot of the times it's a misalignment, right? So you have the stated goals or the stated mission statement, right, from the company, but yet what they're actually doing is way over here. And it's like, you know, and everybody on the inside can see it. And it's kind of like the emperor's new clothes, right? You know, it's like, the emperor doesn't really have any clothes sometimes. I mean, you know, so it's very, very important. But what I've seen is that the habits that work for an individual also work for an organization. There's really no way around that. For example, again, using my Afformations method and using those empowering questions, you know, why is it so easy for us to reach our goals this quarter? Now, that could be something that you align everybody on, and you're affirming together. That's very, very powerful. You know, and we have lots of tools to help you with that. You know, we have iAfform audios and online programs and things like that, where we actually help you to install these types of empowering questions. But really, whatever works for the individual also works for the organization. It's really just a matter of getting that alignment and understanding where everybody is. And then, frankly, giving people permission to communicate openly without fear of reprisal. That's a big, big thing right now in corporate America.
Well, I love that, because I think that, you know, I talked with another guest who basically said, you know, your organization is comprised of, you know, several individuals, right? And so I like your approach of actually focusing on each individual and then assessing collectively as a group, because it does start as a one-on-one, because you can have somebody who seems like they're aligned, but they've got this head trash that's completely, you know, suddenly you got a flat tire on the car and you don't know it, because it seems still moving, but it's not moving nearly as fast as it could if it was, you know, pumped up. So let's talk about where we are at right now. We've been hit with just a massive, I'm calling it the perfect storm, right? Pandemic creates economic, combination of both of those exposes what was already there, social. So there's a lot of turmoil. What are some of
Yes.
the best ways that we can make sure we stay grounded and don't lose the progress that we have when things are so tumultuous?
I think one of the things we have to do is focus on what we have instead of what we don't have. All right.
Okay.
So the recipe to be resentful and angry is focus on what you don't have.
Yeah.
Pretty damn simple, right?
Yeah.
And boy, did I spend years there. So I know what that's like, and it sucks, and it's as unproductive, counterproductive as you could possibly be, right? Just
Sure.
focus on what you don't have, and you're guaranteed to be resentful, right? So I've had, again, I've written 15 books pretty much on the same subject as, okay, how to get rid of head trash, like, resentment, envy, anger, fear, and so forth. And I think almost all of those, if you really boil it down, comes down to focusing on what you don't have and what you are not. Okay. And let's face it, that's easy to do, especially with social media, right? And you're scrolling through social media, and this guy's on a mountain and this girl's on a beach, and it's like, oh man, and you instantly think, I don't have, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy. And so you got to fight that. It's really hard, but you can use my Afformations method and some of the other tools that we share with you. So that's number one. Number two is to, of course, focus on what you do have. Now, those sound like the same thing, but they're not. So you actually have to actively not focus on or stop focusing on what you don't have and what you are not. And at the same time, you have to focus on what you have and what you are. Okay. Sure. And you're saying, but no, well, I don't have any money. I don't have any time. I don't have a job. I don't have my business where I want it and all that stuff. And I go, you're proving my point, right? So you're focusing on what you don't have, right? So are you alive? Are you breathing? Then you have time. All right. Then you must have some kind of something right now. And I know, again, it sounds easy. And it's hard. It's really hard, especially for those going through tough times. I get it. Listen, in 2007, I was $40,000 in credit card debt working out of my parents' basement. I've been in business since 1997. And after 10 long years of work, giving those gurus, all those guys out there, over $250,000, only to find out, sadly, they can't teach their way out of a paper bag, right? So I got a lot of bad advice, and I trusted the wrong people and ended up $40,000 in credit card debt. So at that very low point in my life, I did exactly what I'm saying to you right now. So I'm not speaking out of turn, and I'm not doing something that I didn't do myself. I had no money. I was deep in debt. I was working on my parents' basement. I mean, this was 2007, so not that long ago. But I realized I have to do what I'm saying to all of you, which is I've got to, number one, focus on what I have. And number two, I've got to just take little actions every day. What one little thing can I do? Now, for me, I also ended up hiring a business coach. Now, that was really hard. I was really scared. And I was, I'm like, well, I don't have the money. I heard all the head trash that, we all hear, right? I don't have the money, don't have the time, And I said, I don't care, because we all know the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And I said, no, if you want to stop being insane, you got to do something different. So I hired the coach, and thank goodness, he really helped me and really, showed me the way, gave me, the right plan and helped me with the right tools and gave me the support that I needed. And really what I think is really comes down to those three things. Okay. When you have the right plan, when you have the right tools, and when you have the right support, you really can, I think, accomplish miracles. Right. And so do those types of things every day, and just, it's probably not going to be all at once, but even just a little bit of momentum every day will make a huge difference for you down the road.
Well, I like how you said it seems easy, but it's really hard, because I think a lot of people go, that's too easy to be true kind of thing. But no, it's actually hard, because it's not a singular action. It's a consistent, you have to stay in that space forever. I mean, if you want that change, if you want that growth, you have to maintain it. Last question I like to ask people is, if you could go back in time, and I think you've shared some of these things, but what would you do differently, or how would you have approached it, aside from, all the money spent on the gurus that were a wash? What might you have done differently that you'd like to apply?
I think this is one thing I tell people all the time, which is that when, you can't turn on social media, go on your phone without seeing some new guru, in front of his plane and car and all this stuff. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with all the flashy stuff. We all want nice things in our lives. The question that I always now have that I wish I would have done before is, has that person actually helped anyone else? Or is it all about themselves? See, that's what we see now in the guru space is, hey, look at all this money I've made. Yeah. And okay, that's great for you, but have you helped anyone else? That's why I'd rather brag about my client's success, rather than me, because if it's only about me, then you don't have a system. You've got maybe a personality, and that's what most of them have. It's a personality versus a system. You see what I mean? So when it's a system, that means anybody can do it, right? It's like
Yeah.
a recipe. You know, it's a chocolate chip cookie recipe. If you can
Right.
follow a recipe, then you can have success. Now you have to follow the recipe. You have to do the work. But see, so that's really, I fell prey to that. You know, all the shiny objects, all and they're very sexy, very seductive
Sure.
images. You know, ooh, I want the plane. Ooh, I want the car. And you're like,
Yeah.
you know, Pavlov's dog, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I fell for that. So that's what I would tell my younger self is, hey, just do a little more homework, will you? And find out if they helped anyone else.
Right.
And unfortunately, I did finally find that one, coach who helped me years ago. And, you know, that's what now we try to emulate for our clients.
Okay. Well, that's a great takeaway. So I appreciate you sharing. No, I want to thank you for coming on. Really appreciate the insights and look forward to having you back.
Anytime. Sounds great.
All right. Thanks, Noah.